What are we learning today? I want to share with you today a Nekuda, an idea from a Nekuda from the 15th of Shevat in Tashim and Vav, 15th of Shevat. The 15th of Shevat, some basic themes that this day empowers us to have. One of the more basic themes that the Rebbe emphasized was in 1971, where the Rebbe began at that time, in the 15th of Shvat, it began Mitzvah Torah. Mitzvah Torah, that everyone should share Torah as wide and as far as possible. The truth is that the way the Rebbe said it mirrors another idea that the Rebbe said expresses the essence of the 15th of Shvat. The 15th of Shvat is the day that we celebrate the New Year for trees. But there are no trees growing now. Now is the time for planting seeds. And yet, how do we celebrate this Yontif? We celebrate the Yontif by having fruit. So that fruit from the trees. So Rebbe said that that's the idea of a Jew. Even when he's up to just planting the seeds, he has bitachon, he trusts in Hashem that he'll be able to get to the fruit. Although he's only up to the seed stage, despite the fact that he's only by the seeds, he already is celebrating with the fruit. Even though Rebbe brought so many different analogies that could possibly happen wrong when you plant the seeds. An animal might dig them up, all going down in detail. And yet, he celebrates with the fruit already before he's planting the seeds. So today was the day when the Rebbe planted the seeds for what you see today, the Torah that was spread throughout the world and continues to spread every year, more and more, every day, more and more, from the Rebbe's campaign of Torah. So when the Rebbe spoke about it, Rebbe spoke about it now with the fruit before there was even seeds. So on that note, in this Farbrengen, I want to share with you, it's from Tavshim Vav, 1986. That year, the 15th of Shvat fell out on Shabbos. And although that's what happened that year, and it doesn't happen that way this year, but the Rebbe said on more than one occasion that Hashem arranges the calendar every year, not only for that year, but you're supposed to draw a lesson from that year for other years as well. So one of the points that the Rebbe made is that the 15th of Shvat is the day of the perfection of the month. Just like there are days of the week, and the perfection of days of the week is Shabbos. So the perfection of days of the month is the 15th of the month when the moon is full. That's why all the holidays are associated with the 15th. So when 15th of Shvat falls out on Shabbos, you have perfection of both. And everyone at length discussing what the difference is between the perfection of days of the month and perfection of days of the week. But I don't want to go into the whole Farbrengen, partially because I don't know the whole Farbrengen, but also because I wanted to bring out a point about this theme, about spreading Torah to all places, which was the theme of that Farbrengen, the point that Rebbe wants us to take from this day. Before I go on, I just want to mention one more point. It's not just that this day is the Rosh Hashanah for Torah. This day is the Rosh Hashanah for Torah. This is the day that we're supposed to draw our power for Torah. The Rebbe said it's not just Torah, but just like fruit is something you eat for pleasure primarily. You don't have to eat fruit. You eat fruit to enjoy fruit. So too, the power of the 15th of Shvat is to imbue our Torah study with pleasure. This is a day where we receive from Hashem the ability to enjoy the Torah. And therefore, it starts off with deciding to enjoy Torah and to spread Torah. Okay, so what does it mean when we say that the 15th of Shvat is a perfection of the month of Shvat? What is the month of Shvat about, and what's the perfection of the month of Shvat?
Just the month of Shvat or the year?
The month of Shvat. Because this is the 15th of Shvat, this is the perfection of the month of Shvat.
It's also Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, right. Oh, what's Machtim? Chaim. So the month of Shvat is associated with translating the Torah into all languages. It says that on the first day of Shvat, Moshe Rabbeinu began to translate the Torah into 70 languages. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu translate the Torah into 70 languages? What was the point? Why do you want to translate the Torah in every language? The point was that the Chaim Peretz Bresman to learn the Torah, and he's going to say, it's not the real thing. The real thing is the Torah as it is in Hebrew. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu translates the Torah into all languages in order that whenever a Jew is in the exile and doesn't know how to speak, he can't learn Torah in the original. He has to learn Torah in translation. So Moshe Rabbeinu himself translates the Torah so Jews should know this is also Torah. So that's what Moshe Rabbeinu began doing in the beginning of the month of Shvat. That's what he continued to do throughout the month of Shvat. The whole month of Shvat, Moshe Rabbeinu was translating the Torah. So the theme of the month of Shvat is associated with sharing the Torah to who? The people who are unable to learn Torah in the original. That's also associated with the previous Rebbe, whose anniversary of passing is in the month of Shvat, on the 10th of Shvat, that his name is also Yosef, which it says that each month is associated with a different tribe. The month of Shvat is associated with the tribe of Yosef. The energy of the month of Shvat is the energy of Yosef. What was the previous Rebbe's essence about? So just like when Rachel gave birth to Yosef, she said, "May God give me another child." And she was asking on the surface to have one more child because she knew there would be 12 children of Yaakov, and she wanted to have at least 2. So the Chassidic says that the words she used were "bein acher," a son, a stranger. What she wanted was that her son should be someone who is able to help a Jew who feels that they're a stranger. They shouldn't feel that they're a stranger. They should feel that they are God's child. That's the same idea of what Moshe Rabbeinu was doing. Moshe Rabbeinu was translating the Torah into all languages, so a Jew studying Torah in a different language shouldn't feel that he's a stranger, he's not part of it.
It seems like the Ben Acher applies more to Yosef than Yamin. Yosef seems, especially when you're talking about the Rebbe, so the help of strangers seems to come more from Yosef than Yamin.
The truth is, the Medrash says even more. The Medrash says the request was not just to have Binyamin. The request was to have a grandson from Yosef. Which grandson? Yeravam ben Avat. And that he does strange things. Yeravam ben Avat, it says that he was one of the 3 people in history that his neshama was cut off completely, and whatever. Let's not get into his averis, but nevertheless. So why would anyone want to have a son like that?
Yeah.
So the answer is, as Tzemach Tzedek and Rebbe explained, that what she wanted was that even if a person was like Yeravam ben Avat, even if a person was so terrible, her son should be someone who is able to make that person not feel like they're a stranger, not feel that they're separate, but they are God's child. There's 3 people in history. One of them was Acher, who means a stranger. So that's the power of Yosef, to bein Acher, that you shouldn't be to help a Jew wherever they are to feel they are God's child. In another occasion, Rebbe said that's the theme also of this week's parsha. When Hashem gave us the Torah, it says in Parshas V'eschanan, there was a great voice, and the voice never stopped. So one meaning of it never stopped is that it continued into other languages. That even when you study Torah in a different language, it's also the voice of Hashem at Mount Sinai. So that's the power of the 15th of Shvat. It's a day when there's a perfection of this energy of reaching out to other people, spreading the Torah in every place. And therefore, the first thing we have to take out of this day is make a resolution to share the Torah farther and wider than it's ever been spread before, to people and to places that it hasn't reached yet. That's the power of this day, to make a decision to actually do something, to make a difference and to share Torah with a wider audience than we've been sharing it with till now. So this is the power of the 15th of the month. And in that Farbrengen, we spoke about also about this is especially potent that year because the 15th of the month, the 5th and the 7th day of the week, which is perfection, days of the week, are on the same day. But then they've asked the question. There is a rule. The rule is that you're supposed to always go higher in holiness, always supposed to be elevated more today than yesterday. So what happens on the 16th of the month? The 15th of the month, it says the Jewish people count according to the moon and they are compared to the moon. And therefore, in the full light of the moon is the full light of the Jewish people. But all of a sudden, the next day, the moon gets smaller. And then the day after gets even smaller. So how does that fit with this theme of Yelchum Chayil Chayil? How does it fit with this theme of going from strength to strength when the opposite seems to be the case? So the answer is that after a Jew reaches the full light of what they're able to give, the full revelation of who they are, another parenthetical point, which is an important point, Rebbe spoke about how on this day you should tell children. And Rebbe said even children, not just everyone, especially even children who are 3 or 4 years old, you should tell them that just like Eretz Yisrael is a land that produces all kinds of fruit, and it's a treasure, it's a land which has so much treasures in it, so too every child is like Eretz Yisrael, and they have so much potential, so much treasures in them. And just like it will be a waste not to use the treasure, so too every child should know how much treasures they have inside of them, how much they're able to give. So
you said a minute ago when a Jew reaches his full potential.
so the 15th of the month. So the 15th of the month, very good. So the 15th of the month represents how you use a full revelation of this month. You achieve
but this month.
One second. Hold on.
Gotcha.
You reach a full revelation of what Hashem is giving you. You've expressed all these lost right now. Now comes the next day. What's the next day? The next day is after you reach your full potential of what you're able to reveal from the light Hashem is giving you. Then there's something else. In order to really reveal the light of Hashem, there's another component. Besides revelation, there's also an idea of bittul, humility. In order for the moon to receive light from the sun, the moon approaches the sun and gets smaller and smaller. In a similar way, a Jew is compared to the moon, and the sun is compared to the Shekhinah, the divine revelation of Hashem. So in the second half of the month represents how you're not allowed to consider yourself to be so high and mighty. And you have to realize that all the light you have comes from Hashem. So the theme of the second half of the month is of growing in your humility and your closeness to Hashem. The theme of the second half of the month is how there's more and more self-abnegation, there's more and more a sense of whose light it is. And until you reach the end of the month. In our prayers, we say every day, let my soul be like dust before all, open my heart to your Torah. So there's a connection between these two phrases. And I was discussing this once with Rabbi Reitschek, Al Shalom.
You were discussing.
Yeah, and he's like, I was discussing the idea of how humility allows you to reach a deeper understanding of Torah. Specifically, where the tzaddikim, so devoted to Hashem, they're the ones with the greatest insight in Torah. As it says in the pasuk, though let my soul be like dust before all, open my heart to your Torah. So he was basically making the point that when you say that pasuk, are you serious? Do you want God to really to flatten you, to make you feel like dust? The Eibishter is good at that. Whatever, Chas Hashem. Anyways, but the point is, the more humility you have, not to Chas Hashem get hurt. God is a genius. He can make this happen in an easy way. Okay, so the more humility you have, the more you feel where your light is coming from, the more you feel like dust before Hashem, the more you're able to observe Torah. So the second half of the month is becoming more and more devoted and closer to the source, and that's how you're able to receive in the next month the new light of Hashem. But at the end of the month, it's not just that the moon is getting smaller and smaller. Right before the birth of the moon doesn't even have a geometric point. The moon is totally it's totally not revealed at all. There's not even a tiny bit of moon left at the end, which is even greater than the sentiment that's expressed in our prayers. Let my soul be like dust to all. Dust is still a thing. But at the end of the month, a Jew reaches the highest level of bittul, the highest level of devotion and abnegation for Hashem.
It's 24 hours of nothing.
I shouldn't say the word nothing, because as we say in our davening every day, when we say when we open the Torah, I am the servant of Hashem, I bow before Hashem, we sing with a niggin. I bow before Hashem for his glorious Torah, and Jew sings it with a niggin.
It's 24 hours.
Was nothing, right. So in a similar way, the Jew is nothing, but it's not a.
It's a nothing to go to the next full.
It's a very joyous nothing. Right. It's a joyous nothing because it's intimacy with Hashem, which allows it to be the new birth. What's the new birth? So now, after a Jew has reached the highest level of devotion, abnegation for Hashem, now he's ready for a new revelation from Hashem in the next mile, the next moon. And when the moon receives more light from the sun, and similarly in this world, the Jew receives more light from Hashem, a new light of the next month. And then he grows in that light until he reaches the 15th of the month. And the second half of the month is again the theme of humility and higher levels of humility until he's able to reach the new light of the third month and continues on each month receiving more and more light. A greater light, incomparably greater in the next month than the month before. So now there's a special power for this, to spread the Torah more than the day before. Every day, Hashem empowers us to do this, to spread the Torah every day, higher and higher. But it's not just spreading the Torah to others. The words of Mashiach to the Baal Shem Tov, to spread the wellspring to the outside, don't only refer to the outside. It also refers to the outside within yourself. What does it mean, the outside within yourself? Within ourselves, we have our neshama, we have our body. So the idea of spreading the wellspring to the outside is also it means that the Chassidus that we learn shouldn't just be something that we do and compartmentalize in one part of our day, but it's supposed to affect the most physical and lowest parts of our life. They also should be imbued, they should be affected and illuminated with the warmth and the life of Chassidus. This is also very in sync with the theme of this parsha we just read, which was the year that the Rebbe said this is on the 15th of Shevat, Parshas B'Shalach. Parshas B'Shalach talks about the man. What was the idea of the man? The man came from heaven, bread from heaven. So it was bread, you ate it in this world, and it was still heavenly. It was heavenly in more ways than one. In one way it was heavenly was that you were nourished by it and you ate it, and yet there was no excrement, there was no pselos. The man was a perfectly heavenly food that became absorbed in the body. So although it was physical and you ate it, it remained heavenly, it remained holy, it remained godly, it remained divine. It had divine properties even after as it became a physical bread. Same as also with Chassidus, and even after, this is especially true for Chabad Chassidus, which emphasizes understanding it in a real logical way, like understanding Gemara, that even after the Chassidus nourishes you, even as Chassidus nourishes you, and as it says in chapter 5 in Tanya, that Chassidus, that Torah is compared to bread, and it nourishes you, and it becomes absorbed within you, and you understand it, and it makes sense to you, and it impacts you. Even it's still the pure bread from heaven. It's bread from heaven, even after it gets absorbed within you. And this is also connected with the theme with spreading Chassidus to others as well. Who ate the man? It says man was eaten by tzaddikim. Everyone ate the man. The righteous ate the man. The average people ate the man. The wicked ate the man. As the Medrash says, the various ways the man would appear. But even if a person wasn't the category of the wicked, they still ate the man, and it was still man for them. It was godly for them as well. So too, when we talk about the power of the 15th of Shevat and spreading Chassidus to other people, you have to realize when you spread Chassidus to someone else, and they are someone who it seems they're foreign to the whole concept that you're sharing with them, you have to realize that this is also the divine food of Hashem as it gets transferred to the person who you think is not there. And that's the meaning of a minyan. A minyan, the word tzibur in Hebrew, has 3 letters. Tzaddik, it would stand for the 3 kinds of levels of serving God, or Tzaddik, Beini, Rasha, the perfectly righteous, the average, and the wicked. Between the average and the wicked, there's a vav. It says that the vav is a special letter, that Yaakov took a vav from Eliyahu's name, right? And he told Eliyahu, I'm not giving you back this vav until you redeem the Jewish people. So the letter vav is associated with redemption. Why the letter vav? And what does that do with the concept we're talking about? The letter vav, the Zohar says, is a letter of truth. Why is letter vav the letter of truth? Because what is truth? Truth is something which is true in every place and every time. Truth is, the letter vav is a line, geometric line. Represents even 2 minutes. The letter vav is a geometric line. And it goes from the hot. Don't worry. It's the most geschmacka part is what is my say do. Anyways, so the letter vav goes from the highest place to the lowest place. So it represents how the truth of Hashem is everywhere. That's why vav is called the letter of truth. So similarly, what's the role of those who are not in the category of the Rasha? They're supposed to take what they know. They're supposed to take the Chassidus that they learn and share it with the Rasha, share it with those who are not given that privilege, and they're supposed to lift them up and give them the full light of what they have, the light of Chassidus. So that's what the vav represents. That they're sharing something of the deepest parts of the Torah, and they're sharing it with the wicked person in a way that nourishes the wicked person, and yet it still remains godly, and there's no pselos. The meaning of not having pselos means, on our personal level, is that even when you're involved with physical things, it's not in a way of pselos, it's not in a way that there's anything negative there. Within ourselves, spreading Chassidus to the outside of ourselves means that although we're involved in the physical and the things that the Talmud says that a person is compared to an animal, whatever you're involved in, eating and drinking, etc., despite whatever you're doing that's not godly and holy, it would seem, yet just like the man didn't have any negative, any excrement, so too the man imbues us that we're able to bring Hashem's holiness into the lowest parts of our life, into the most physical parts of our life. And the same as well, when we spread Chassidus to others, it's not just that you're sharing something godly and holy with someone else who's on the outside, but it's the same truth. It doesn't lose its truth, it doesn't lose its sanctity, and allows the tzaddik and the beis to share with the reish, the tzaddik, the perfectly righteous and the average, to share with someone who's not that righteous, and to make them part of the word tzibur. The Talmud says that a minyan could only be is only accepted by Hashem if they have all three categories of Jews: the righteous, the average, and the wicked. And the goal is that those who are not in the category of the righteous should receive from them, become part of the same word, that they should hear and learn the chassidus from those who are gifted to learn it, but it shouldn't be in a way that they're diluting it and separating it and giving it a less than version of what they're getting themselves. The point is that although they have to package it in a way that the other person should understand it, but they should realize that what they're doing, they're giving the full light of Hashem to the person they're sharing Torah with. Just like Moshe Rabbeinu, he translates the Torah into all languages, and it's still Torah. So too, when you're bringing the Torah down to someone else and their level, you shouldn't feel it's less than. It's not the same kind of Torah. Although it's not descended, it's not altered, it's not adulterated from its pristine form. It's still the wellsprings of Chassidus. And that's why Eliyahu Hanavi, it says that Yaakov took the vav from Eliyahu Hanavi's name in order that Eliyahu Hanavi took it as collateral, so Eliyahu Hanavi should redeem the Jewish people. The letter of vav is associated with the coming of Mashiach. By spreading, what did the Mashiach tell about Hashem? When is it going to come? When the wellsprings of Chassidus are spread to the outside, to the farthest places. So the letter of vav is about spreading Chassidus to the most distant and farthest places, and there also to reveal the truth of Hashem. That's what Mashiach is about, the revelation of Hashem in the physical world. So therefore, the vav of the letter of the word tzibur and the vav of Eliyahu Hanavi are connected by spreading Chassidus to people which you think aren't able to absorb Chassidus, and giving them the full light of Chassidus as it really is, because that's what you're doing. And that, again, it still remains the manna bread. It still remains heaven-like food even after it descends to the realm of the other person. So by doing that, you are you're opening up, you're ushering in the aura and the actual coming of Mashiach, because the coming of Mashiach is about the letter of Vav, the Oyes Emes, as the Zohar says, the letter of truth, how the truth of Hashem is revealed in the physical world in a way that we'll see it with our eyes. So Chaim Chaim, we should take the inspiration this day and spread Yiddishkeit and Chassidus to the outside, and realize that there is no outside. As everyone said, that when you spread Chassidus to the outside, you discover that the outside world itself is part of